Well, Senator Nguyen, it's so lovely to meet you and have the opportunity to be here on the West Side at Arts West in this super cozy theater to talk about cultural access. So thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on all that you're doing to make Washington State a better place for us to live, work, and play. So we're going to dive right in to Cultural Access Washington, or Inspire Washington. I've been a community engagement co-chair for a few years and happy to be a part of our outreach efforts. I was a part of our 2017 campaign when we brought the idea of cultural access to the community. A few years back, the state legislature gave local jurisdictions the ability to modestly raise sales tax to fund arts and culture and science programs. And in 2017, according to our numbers, that translated to about $30 per household per year. The purpose of cultural access specifically is to increase access, particularly for underserved populations and communities. And I've enjoyed reading through some of your campaign materials. I know that the cycle of poverty is a big part of your message, and I just really appreciate that. So perhaps this message resonates with you. So we want to reduce barriers and promote greater equity in King County. Unfortunately, we lost the measure in 2017 by a very, very small margin, but we continue to work hard and connect with the community. We were big supporters of the city of Tacoma, which enacted a measure a few years back, and they were very successful in that. So the state legislator is considering giving the county the authority to approve the tax directly at this point. So we're looking at a future for cultural access. In either case, if you are elected, would you push for the adoption of cultural access in King County?
Definitely, and I think one of the biggest things is to often diversify kind of the funding sources as well, because for me, access to arts and culture is the foundation of our identity. It should be part of our fabric in this county and in this state and in this city as well. And again, thank you to Arts West for hosting. I'm actually in my home block, essentially, so I live right down the street. So we do come here as well. And what I will say is that, at least for me, I was born in White Center, raised in South King County, and one of the most formative experiences that I had growing up was having access to a saxophone. And I say that because it was not easy. I remember how difficult it was for us to just procure one. We had to basically put it on layaway for my mom to be able to afford one. I think it was $300 at that time. But I spent so much of my time and energy using music as an outlet for so many things in my life. My father was in a car accident when I was younger. I was caught up sometimes in things that were probably not the most productive in life, but because I had access to that, gave me opportunities that I didn't realize existed, including playing in jazz with Clarence Acox at the Saddle Academy, being able to travel because of my ability to play saxophone. So for me, access to arts and culture and education are all intertwined. So for us to have a robust city, for us to have a robust county and a robust state, we need to also have a robust cultural and arts community as well.
Wow, thank you for that. And music, such an integral part of us as human beings. And I really appreciate your experience in playing the saxophone and how that contributed to your life and experience as a student, which kind of leads me to our second question around schools. You shared a story on your website about your father and his health challenges and being disabled, and that you had to step up and work and help provide for the family. And you actually worked at your school, which is just, I know,
imagine,
that is, I thought, how much must that feel?
It was not easy.
I bet. I bet. So just on that note about schools, how would you encourage collaboration between the cultural sector and the 19 public school districts?
Yeah, there's a few things. And here, just because you brought it up, but I worked as a janitor, but I also worked at the aquarium during that time as well. So I think part of the cultural sector should include, say, for instance, the zoo or aquarium and making investments there. But when you look at, say, for instance, investments in public schools specifically, it's been underfunded for a long time. And I actually watched your forum the other day, and one of the questions that you had to the school board members was the question of accreditation. For education, for teachers to be able to work in public schools, you have to have accreditation. And oftentimes in the arts community, that adds a different barrier for those who wants to be in that space. So I think working with OSPI to potentially amend that statute to allow for it, but also enrichment programs as well. So even if we can't directly have educators in this space, we can provide enrichment programs in the arts community. Arts Corps is in this district, and they do a lot of that work as well. They serve 2,500 students in any given year, being able to give them arts programs and access to programs that they wouldn't necessarily have in the first place. And look, I'll just point it out. I grew up in South King County where we did not have much access to the arts. The saxophone was really the only thing that I had.
Sure.
My daughter, who is in this neighborhood now, it's a very different story, right? So the fact that access to the arts depends on the neighborhoods that you're in is a travesty.
Right.
And I think for us to truly have equity in our education, we need to make sure that we're investing in these programs no matter where you are. It shouldn't be required to have a PTA that can help fund these enrichment programs. You need to have that as well. So one of the things is going to be the accreditation. The other one is just where do we make these investments to ensure that our young people have access to the arts?
Great. And there are so many institutions in our county that are already making those really important investments into the lives of these students and families, which leads to my next question around the vibrancy of those organizations. Obviously, we're in this pandemic climate, and we've been here for the past 18 months. Cultural institutions are just burning to get the public back into the buildings, arts venues, museums, science institutions. They're hungry to serve. I've had this experience with an organization I'm with, Village Theater in Issaquah.
Yeah.
And so we're just hungry for that connection with patrons. So what can the county do to work with arts and culture venues to ensure a safe return of audiences who are so hungry to get back to theaters, museums, science centers that they love?
Yeah, well, first off, let's get as many people vaccinated as possible and get the Delta variant under control.
Sure.
I think that's the biggest thing from a public health perspective. But the other one is, like, it's going to require resources. And there has been an allocation of federal dollars, about $27 million, towards relief in order to help music venues or other live performance venues open back up. I think that's one of the key things. And there are things that we could be doing to actually make it easier as well, either streamlining that application process so you don't have to navigate a myriad of bureaucracy to get the relief that you need. But also, if you look at King County right now, it is the 12th largest county in the United States, bigger than 14 states. And there's no Office of Economic Development, right? So in one of the largest jurisdictions in all the United States, there's no Office of Economic Development. And to me, economic development and the arts community go hand in hand, whether it's in tourism, whether it's in trade, whether it's in, just the industries that are here. We need to be able to build better, stronger by having an office that's dedicated towards making sure that we have a viable economy to support the arts in this community as well. So open things back up using the appropriate relief that we have right now, making the process easier for those in the industry. Because oftentimes when you're seeing staffing levels going lower because of layoffs and whatnot, it's harder to actually access these things with less resources.
Right.
So making sure that those are open back up, having an actual plan towards recovery through an Office of Economic Development that doesn't necessarily exist right now is another one as well. But the biggest thing is let's get this under control so we can open back up.
Right. Absolutely. We're all eager to get there.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and
sure.
if you don't mind, I just want to point out that a lot of these
absolutely.
things happen, like a lot of these barriers were in existence before the pandemic even started. These underinvestments, this lack of resources, not having a focus on what the future looks like. To me, the arts and cultures program should be the foundation by which we exist. A healthy arts community is a healthy community as a whole. And a lot of the issues that we're trying to solve, whether it's affordability, homelessness, even like gun violence and how do we invest in our youth, a lot of that stuff can be done in the same way. And I think the arts can play a pivotal role in that.
Okay, so thank you again for that insight. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us today?
Yeah, here, look, I'll go into some of the nuts and bolts of it as well, because I think really the future of our economy relies on a strong creative industry just because it's not subject to automation and whatnot. So I think King County can truly lead in this space. Oftentimes, those who work in the creative industries have non-traditional roles. They're either self-employed or they have short-term contracts. If we had something like a guaranteed basic income for folks who work in the creative industry, if we had portable benefits so you can get health care or access to a retirement plan through the county, if you had a public health plan that had, ability for folks to get access to the needs that they need to serve, Those are things that we can be doing in King County that we aren't thinking about right now, beyond just the investments that we need to make. We can make the lives better for folks that work in the creative industry, which will then help strengthen that community as a whole.
Well, and thank you for your time today. What you've shared is just we really appreciate your perspective and what the energy that you're bringing to your campaign, and your desire to see the county do well and to lead. So thank you again for your time and for sharing with us today.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here on the West Side in Seattle, here at Arts West. It's so great to see you again. Congratulations on your campaign and all that you're doing to get the county through this very difficult time. And thank you for sharing the afternoon with us. I'm Janelle. I'm with Inspire Washington, and we appreciate the opportunity to just ask you a few questions about cultural access and how you feel about the support of that effort going forward as we look toward a 2022 campaign. I'm sure you're quite familiar with our efforts in 2017 to pass cultural access through a ballot measure that would have slightly increased sales tax to the tune of around $30 per family, but would have provided much needed services to particularly underserved communities. I know just through reading through some of your campaign materials that maintaining jobs in the arts is one of the priorities for you, and obviously cultural access could be a very important part of that mission. And we just want to know, as we move toward this 2022 campaign, since unfortunately we lost the 2017 campaign by a very small margin, which speaks to just how much support there was among voters for this effort. But if the legislature was able to bring this back to the forefront and the county would have the authority to approve the tax directly, would you push for the adoption of cultural access in King County?
Well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me to speak with you today. Yes, I brought forward Access for All originally because I really believe that I believe in the arts, and I believe that everyone in our county, all 2.3 million of us, need to be part of the conversation, part of the arts, heritage, science, culture. It is critical that we provide sustained support for our arts organizations, and it is equally critical that price not be a barrier for people in being able to be fully a part of the community. I do think that the arts are central to who we are. They're central to our quality of life. They're not merely a distraction or an entertainment. They're the way in which we're able to exchange ideas, to be in community, and ultimately to find our way forward together. And that means we all need to be a part of it.
Great. So it sounds like you would absolutely support I don't want to put words in your mouth, but 2022 campaign if it were to come forward.
I've made no secret about the fact that I'm really disappointed that the last measure failed by just the tiniest fraction of a percent. And that I am absolutely committed to bringing forward a new Access for All measure when we have a really clear shot at winning it. We have to win this. We have to, in our time, create a more solid foundation under our cultural community and really broaden the access so that every single person can be a part of what makes this place special.
Sure. Well, and your point about broadening access brings me to my second question around strengthening partnerships within school districts. You talk very publicly about being a proud father and a public school graduate, and that you've emphasized fostering effective strategies to reduce juvenile crime and detention. And just wanted you to kind of reflect on arts and culture programming as a positive thing to impact our youth in the community. How would you encourage collaboration between the cultural sector and the 19 public school districts?
So Access for All, in fact, had an element that was directed toward engaging school districts and school kids throughout the county. That was one of the things I found maybe most attractive about it. My own education was all wrapped up in instrumental music primarily. My dad is a visual artist, and he taught art history, design, drawing in both the secondary schools and colleges throughout his career, and he continues to paint at the age of 93. So I believe that these things are critically important to a child's education and their sense of belonging and self, and the sense that they have value, some value to convey. I know that not only through sort of the reading of academic studies, but through my own experience.
Well, and we know that, I grew up in the area in Kent, and I know that there was always access to the arts in schools, and now we're faced with, limited funding to be able to provide that. And many schools rely on partnerships with cultural institutions, quite frankly, to provide that supplemental education. And so we need these institutions to stick around. We've just reflecting on the pandemic that we've survived and what it looks like coming out of that. You have a public health agency here in the county that is certainly overtaxed right now with the pandemic climate. But for cultural venues, we're looking at a safe return and patrons that rely on this really important experience here in the county. So what would the county do to work with arts and culture venues to ensure a safe return of audiences who are so hungry to get back to theaters and museums and science centers that they love?
As I say, I believe in the cultural community as being central to who we are. This is not an add-on or an extra. Yes, huge economic impact, but also tremendously important for our identity as a region and our attractiveness as a region. So I have budgeted $20 million for the recovery of our arts and cultural organizations, science organizations following COVID, to bring people back to work. These organizations were the first to close, the last to reopen, and to get people back in theaters, back in galleries and museums, back to enjoying the things that make this place great, but also another $9.4 million for smaller organizations being managed by our arts nonprofit For Culture. My goal is that every organization will not just get through the downturn of the pandemic, but that will come back stronger, that will be able to create a more equitable cultural environment where large and small, new and old organizations are able to succeed, and that we can bring all of those tens of thousands of cultural workers back to work and really start to move forward toward the day when we can pass that access for all measure, and then we're on our way.
Great. Thank you. There is a difference between just surviving and thriving.
That's right.
I appreciate that
That's right.
comment. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
In an ideal world, which is a world, in this case, we should be able to create, state funding would allow for every single public school to have a robust arts program, a robust music program, electives that really enrich the educational experience. We are absurdly, with the best economy we've ever had, in this situation where we're having to go out and beg for money to keep electives going in school. And while Access for All would be a good mechanism to get more arts into the schools, we shouldn't have to have a workaround like that. We need to reform the tax system and have this economy support the things that people need. Well, there's so much I'd like to add, but I know we have limited time. I'm really grateful for the work of Inspire Washington, for the cultural community figuring out how to not just be a bunch of individual organizations, but to join together in common cause. This is going to help us deepen and broaden the reach of arts, heritage, science, and culture, and I can't wait to see what we're able to do next.
Thank you, Executive Constantine. We appreciate you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.